feeling like sunshine, like springtime, like something's in the water and I'm taking a deep dive. I'm feeling so weightless, like I'm gonna make it, and nothing in the universe can take this. I can see it clearly now, nothing gonna bring me down. I got my head held high, I'm on my way, and I'm following the signs to my happy place. I'm walking in the light of a brand new day, and I'm right where I belong, in my happy place. I got my head held high, I'm on my way, and I'm following the signs to my happy place. I'm walking in the light of a brand new day, and I'm right where I belong, in my happy place. And I'm right where I belong, in my happy place. And I'm right where I belong, in my happy place.
Hi, hello, and welcome to the National University of Singapore Yong Loo Lin School of Medicine Healthy Longevity Webinar. Great to have you tonight. This is the last show of the year. We made it. And the next show will be in January in 2025. But before we do that, we have a really exciting show tonight with Vladimir Leshko, who will be joining us a little bit later. I want to remind you to use the Q&A function to ask questions, and we'll try to get to as many of those as possible. Before we do that, however, we have a presentation by Camille Pabas, who's a PhD candidate in the NUS Center for Healthy Longevity. He'll be telling you about a recent study of ours looking at the impact of short-lived controls on the interpretation of lifespan experiments through the lens of the 900-day rule.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present our work here. As mentioned before, I'm Camille, a PhD researcher at the Center for Healthy Longevity. And the idea of our work is basically that you have to work with really healthy, long-lived mice, and it's titled the 900-day rule. This is a study we published together with Professor Brian Kennedy here from the center and Matt Kaberlein from the US. And I can explain the motivation for this paper maybe with an analogy. Take these three countries, for example, Nigeria, the US, and Singapore. People living in these countries will have very different life expectancies and different causes for these life expectancies. In Nigeria, it will be perhaps poverty or infectious diseases. In US, it might be obesity or drug-related deaths. Whereas in Singapore, people live very long. They might still die prematurely due to, let's say, eating too much salt. But generally, if you wanted to study a medication that slows aging, you would prefer to work in a country like Singapore, where people die predominantly from aging. And the same is true for mice. And this project started when we noticed that when you subject mice to caloric restriction, the longer-lived cohorts or strains, they respond less favorably to this intervention, as shown here to the left. And this is even true across different species, be it flies, worms, or yeast. If the controls are healthier, they respond less well and get less lifespan benefit from caloric restriction. And we actually see this across many different data sets. To keep this story short with all its technical complexities, basically, if you plot the control lifespan on the x-axis and the treatment benefit on the y-axis, you usually observe a negative correlation across different studies. And this has various interesting implications. We, for example, asked, how long should a mouse live, having established that you want to use long-lived mice in your research? And we found that for common lab strains like the Black 6 mice, for example, if they are particularly healthy, they will live close to 900 days. So we term this the 900-day rule. So you want control mice that live about as long. We also found that over time, mice in different experiments have become longer lived. So we got better at mouse husbandry. And this is great because now our studies are somewhat more robust and we are better at studying aging in those different mouse studies because they're longer lived and healthier. And having established this standard, you can also go back to the literature and look for various new treatments. So here I plot control lifespans on the left and different treatments here to the right in this figure. For example, we see that telomerase treated or activated mice live longer than expected and meet the standards of the 900-day rule. Same is true for rapamycin-treated mice, but not, for example, mice treated with metformin. They do not live longer, and they do not live close to 900 days, suggesting the former interventions are probably more effective. What we also did is we went back to the broader literature, looking at hundreds of interventions, looking at those where the mice were the longest lived, and you could still extend lifespan using different drugs, as shown here to the left. So, for example, different hard-acting drugs like beta blockers tend to increase lifespan of mice. And here to the right, you can also look at genetic models where we found, consistent with prior literature, that, for example, dwarf mice live considerably longer than regular mice. And this then is also the take-home message of our research, that if you want to study aging, you need to use really healthy long-lived mice. And if you want to focus on disease, it's okay to stick with short-lived sick mice. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Camille. It really tells you a little bit about some of the challenges of doing mouse lifespan studies and trying to get the husbandry conditions ideal. I'm going to move on to Vladimir Leshko, who's an engineer residing in the Netherlands. He's transitioned to the longevity field after several years of experimenting in biohacking and lifestyle interventions upon realizing the greatly limited tools available to extend human lifespan. He's a proud member of the Vitalism community, and the topic of his talk today is accelerated approach to tackling human aging. Vladimir, thanks for joining us, particularly because we had a cancellation and you were kind enough to jump in on short notice. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invite. Great to be here. So just a disclaimer that I'm an operations officer at Unlimited Bio. So the talk is not going to be strictly scientific, but yeah, I'll try to do my best here. So yeah, we're a fresh company, and we have a very ambitious goal to meaningfully offset human aging, because I think we are aligned upon the fact that aging is a terrible thing, and the earlier we act, the better. So our condition starts to deteriorate around the age 30 or 35. And we want to act as early as possible to prevent that from happening. And our mission as a company is to radically accelerate the progress in that field, because people have been talking about extending lifespan already for a while, but we don't yet see any evidence of human lifespan extension. And we have a plan to do that. So first of all, our scientific team decomposes aging into several domains, for example, cognitive, immune system function, muscular function, and well, we consider also important the aesthetical component, so how well we look while we age. So then we define target subsystems and relevant biomarkers so that we can evaluate how well the treatments work, because, well, naturally we cannot wait for tens of years to see the actual lifespan extension. So we have to assume that if a person looks young, the posture is good, there is no wrinkles, no alopecia, and no hair grain, then this person looks as good as a young person. Then we assemble, based on the insights from the previous point, we assemble our portfolio of therapies. So we are not a single drug company, a single pathway company. We not only we don't even mostly rely on our own research and development. We repurpose existing drugs So we stand on the shoulders of the giants in the field, on the companies which already invested hundreds of millions and tens of millions into research and development. They develop drugs for particular diseases, of course, and we license those therapies from them and utilize them for preventive, for anti-aging indications. And well, our ultimate goal is to compose, so to say, anti-aging cocktail, because of course aging is so multifaceted and it has so many things happening at the same time that we cannot rely on a single drug, on a single small molecule to see meaningful results, especially in humans. So once again, just to sum up our approach, we want to combine licensing because it gives a really good fast start for us as a company with our own R&D. So we want to be able also to cover the gaps in existing research and to develop components which are targeting aging. And the end goal is to come up with a cocktail therapy. Of course, we are not the first company to start looking at that, because we have, for example, a number of longevity clinics which are trying to combine various therapies of various efficiency. They're doing IVs, they're doing hyperbaric therapy, they're doing all kinds of things, lifestyle interventions and so on. So they realized that, yeah, also a single approach, only lifestyle, only drugs won't work. You need all at once. Then we have biohackers, which are doing like N=1 experiments on themselves, injecting themselves with gene therapies, doing all sorts of experimental stuff on themselves, because the quality of data collected is not particularly robust, but yeah, it's something. Then we have gene therapy companies which are kind of on this barrier between biohacking and treating disease, like BioViva, founded by Liz Parrish. So they do some studies with targeting dementia with gene therapies and other age-related conditions. And at the same time, Liz is known to do experimental gene therapies on herself. And of course, we also have Good Science, which does combinations. So Aubrey de Grey is currently experimenting with gene therapy and small molecule combinations on mice. But what we really lack is the transition of that kind of research into humans, because we are aware that mice age differently than humans. They die from different set of diseases. So we eventually need to get data on humans, and we need it right now as fast as possible. Right now, the progress is somewhat rate limited by the regulations, because you are aware that bringing a single drug to market can cost and will cost billions, and it takes usually at least 10 years to do so. Complying with GMP requirements, with getting approved with all the trials, and getting funded, first of all, for your research is extremely time and money consuming. And of course, aging is still not recognized as a valid indication in most, if not all, jurisdictions. So we as a company decided to act in special economic zones, which give wider opportunities for utilizing preventive drugs. If you are able to prove that the drugs which you're experimenting with are safe, and they were proven safe in preclinical trials, you're good to go to humans. And as our company has shown, you can get approved there way cheaper and faster than in regular jurisdictions. So we started in Prospera Zere. It's an island in Honduras, an autonomy inside Honduras. And on this island, like a very small area, a few square kilometers, is dedicated to a special economic zone called Prospera. And this island, even before Prospera existed, hosted several clinics involved into regenerative medicine. And we partnered with one of those clinic, GARM. It was founded by a former head physician of the US Olympic team, and they already did some clinical trials with gene therapy, with stem cell therapies, and so on. So it was a good start for us as a company. And we don't want to restrict ourselves to a single location, so we're actively looking for partners which are ready and which are legally allowed to work with gene therapies and with other experimental therapies in other parts of the world. And of course, we need like some sort of MVP, so something to start with. And we were able to license our first gene therapy, VEGF, Vascular Endothelial Growth Factor. It's a gene which was recently shown to greatly increase mice lifespan, and by almost 50% in males. It needs to be said that those were not wild-type mice, as Camille mentioned. Those were lab mice. So we keep that in mind. But what's interesting about that is that they suffered less from cancer, they suffered less from all kinds of age-related diseases, and they had improvement in virtually all aspects of health and all organ functions. Another interesting fact which was observed in the study is the improvement of blood supply to hair follicles, which resulted in better hair quality and like faster hair regrowth. So this gene therapy, as I mentioned, it was already approved since 2011 by a Russian company. It was actually one of the first approved gene therapies in the world. It's a supercoiled plasmid. And it's a plasmid which, upon entering the nucleus of the cell, it starts getting transcripted and produces VEGF protein, which plays a major role in angiogenesis. So it's a protein which acts locally, doesn't get distributed through the bloodstream, and upon the injection site, you get increased capillary ingrowth. So right now it's used for a disease indication called PAD, so peripheral atherosclerotic disease, and particularly its complication, lower limb ischemia. So it's the case when you get restricted blood flow to the lower limbs. And this therapy helps to treat cases when either patient doesn't want to do surgery or to implant a stent, or the surgery is not possible. So it already has around 10,000 patients treated, and it showed a great safety profile. And the effects which were observed is increased tissue oxygenation, among others. And the main effect was a great, up to 700% increase in pain-free walking distance, which is one of the main factors which is limiting the quality of life of PAD patients. And the indications we are going to work with in unlimited bio is, well, first of all, the indication for which it was approved, so PAD. We can also try and prevent lower limb ischemia from happening. So act earlier than the patient actually develops necrosis in the tissue or severe pain while walking. Then another indication which is interesting to us is enhancing muscle oxygenation. It could be used to for example, prevent the deterioration of condition of aging athletes, or it could be used to enhance the performance of mountaineers, for example. So it could be potentially used to prevent sarcopenia, and other age-related conditions in the muscle. And we're going to monitor it by measuring skeletal muscle oxygenation. And I already mentioned that VEGF showed interesting results with mice hair. So we're going to try the same in humans and do a clinical trial on hair rejuvenation. In this case, we want to focus on age-related alopecia, so involutional alopecia, which is just like overall deterioration of hair quality when your hair gets when you get less hair follicles and your hair gets thinner. So the blood supply, it's very much related to blood supply to the scalp. If we focus a bit on the second indication, so the muscle oxygenation, for this clinical trial, we'll utilize MOXIE oxygen meters, which are fixed upon the exact muscle you want to measure oxygenation in. And it works by shining light through the muscle and estimating the percentage of the tissue which is oxygenated. So to measure that, we need to utilize a stationary bike protocol. And yeah, you can see how it's done on the graphs here. So it takes about an hour. It has like two sections built in. One is aerobic exercise for roughly half an hour, and the second one is several intervals. So an aerobic stage, and on the lower graph, you can see how skeletal muscle oxygenation changes throughout the exercise. So in this case, we're going to be monitoring the levels at various stages of exercise, and also the how fast the muscle deoxygenates and then gets to an oxygenated state back after the power you deliver drops. So we are considering two options for this trial. First, we can do a regular monitoring inside a clinical facility. But maybe an even preferential option is doing it as a citizen science kind of trial, when a person is able to collect several runs before and after the treatment. And the treatment also takes several months to get into effect, because you need the capillaries to form before you see an actual effect. So when we do it in a decentralized manner, we'll be able to collect way more data, and so the quality of data will potentially also be higher than just doing it once inside a clinic. So as I mentioned, we don't want to be a single drug company. We started by getting IRB approval in Honduras for PAD indication, so the main indication for VEGF plasmids. Then we want to launch a couple more trials, one for muscle oxygenation and one for hair rejuvenation. Then we already have sort of like preliminary agreement with a company which manufactures a more potent form of VEGF, so a gene therapy delivered within AAV vector, so it will have a systemic effect on the body, on the contrast with plasmid, which acts strictly locally. And then we are close to securing another partnership with a gene therapy company, which will allow us to also do trials on AAV clotho therapy and well, a couple more genes. Well, the end goal is to actually combine those gene therapies into combinations and see if we are actually able to offset human aging over several domains and not just monitoring a single domain like muscle. Well, the major milestones for us are on the slide. So we started with just assembling the team and fundraising a bit and getting VEGF license going in this year. Then next year we registered for X Prize, so we are going to do proof of concept trials for X Prize, and it's going to be a safety trial for a combination of gene therapies. I'll talk about it more later. And then we want to come up with our cocktail, which has already shown some efficiency by roughly 2030. And yeah, in case some of the listeners are not aware what X Prize Health Span is, so it's a 7-year competition. Right now they have, I think, around 550 teams registered, and a goal is to restore muscular, cognitive, and immune function in healthy but aged adults. So the age should be between 50 and 80 years old, and it's important to note that these people must not have any serious age-related conditions, and you have to get their biological age back by 20 years, ideally by 20 years, and you have to do it in a single year. So yeah, therapy needs to have a somewhat fast effect. And yeah, for X Prize, we came up with a program. So for that, we are going to combine several 4 gene therapies with AAV vectors and a single plasmid therapy. And we are going to use several administration routes. We are going to go intranasally to try and to deliver therapies into the brain. And also we're going to use the intramuscular route. And we'll combine this approach with several more things. Of course, you have to also use lifestyle and physical training here, potentially a few small molecules and supplements. Yeah, what we need to get this going. So we need more therapies in our portfolio. So we are actively on the lookout for companies which are willing to license their IP for us. So we are looking for locations for trials. Right now we have one confirmed location in Honduras and one location pending where we can do those trials approved by local IRBs. Of course, we are looking for participants for those trials. And also next year, we are going to fundraise because we need also to get in some preclinical results on therapy combinations, and we need some funds for that. So our team is on the slide. We started this company together with Ivan, who also founded a company called Langeros Technologies, which target elastin depletion. So it's also an important thing to address if you want to get a significant lifespan extension. Anna is known to develop first Russian commercial COVID-19 vaccine. And we also have some brilliant advisors from the longevity field in the team. And for X Prize, we were able to partner with a few very great new team members. Liz Parrish agreed to join us, and we are working on a partnership to get more gene therapies from BioViva into our portfolio. We did not, we don't have that confirmed yet, but we are going there. And we also partnered with Arthur Isaev, who contributed to developing this VEGF plasmid therapy, and he has several biotech companies working on gene therapies, also AAV therapies, not only plasmids. So we are going to use his expertise in doing clinical trials and in administering gene therapies to human patients. So that's it for me. So follow us in social networks. You can also scan the QR code and subscribe for updates from our company. Thank you.
Thanks, Vladimir. Really interesting. I think it's looks audacious to be combining a lot of those therapies together, but I think that going about it is being aggressive and trying to do things like this is really important for the field. Let's talk a little bit about the licensing approach. I mean, I think you've tried to accelerate the development by looking for ideas and technologies that are pre-existing and used for other purposes. How easy has it been to bring these technologies in with an eye toward aging-related themes?
Well, not easy by any means, because there's companies who own the licenses. Usually it's like a huge company with a lot of stakeholders, so it's really hard to approach the decision makers, and also as a fresh company operating outside of well-known jurisdictions, it takes some effort to pitch what exactly are you doing and why treating aging is important. In this case, it helps when the company CEO is already a bit involved into aging and recognizes the value of extending lifespan. Then it helps. But it took, of course, several months to finalize the agreement. So that's what we spend most of our time in 2024.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Have you worked with pharma companies on any of these? You don't have to name names, but I'm just curious what the response of companies that are not in the longevity space per se are.
Usually there is no response at all.
Yeah, I think that it's so far outside the realm that it's hard to get the attention probably. And my guess is it would take a lot of upfront money to get them to pay much attention to this. So.
Yeah, indeed.
I think we mentioned in the past special economic zones for medical practice and on the show, but we've never really talked about them in depth. So you're really taking advantage of that directly. So maybe you could comment a little bit more on how these special economic zones work and why they're so valuable.
Well, we were, I think, the second company to approach Prospera from that direction. So the first one was Minicircle, which you might know as they do follistatin plasmids, and they got some media attention after injecting Brian Johnson. So we thought, if they made it, let's try and do it as well. And to get it running there, what you need is you need to show to the local insurance company what you're going to be doing, what kind of trials you'll be running, what molecules are you working with, what kind of data you get. And yeah, based on that, you get an insurance policy. And that's what you need there to start operating. So you don't need a license. And of course, you also need a clinical partner. In our case, we were able to partner with this clinic, GARM, which already had the experience of working since the start of that special economic zone. They were there. And then, there is a local IRB, and you need to get your trial approved by the IRB. So they look at the safety profile and so on. But what's different is that they are welcoming in terms of preventive indications. So it's a kind of like libertarian approach in Prospera. So in case it's safe, and in case you rightfully inform the patient of the benefits on like on the data you have, on the safety profile, on the risks, then you're good to work. You're good to start working with human volunteers. In this case, they already get a lot of medical tourists coming from the US. So it's that's how it works.
How many clinics are there operating? You don't have to give me an exact number. Just give us a sense of the scope of this project in Prospero.
Not many. I think there are several, but I think it's under 10. So I think there are a few which are really like pushing the boundaries and working with the new stuff, like gene therapies and stem cell therapies. But yeah, not many. So usually these clinics, they are centered around, so to say, gray areas. So some of them operate in Mexico. Some of them operate somewhere else in the Caribbean and Latin America. But what's good about Prospera is that it's like fully legal. Yeah, you have the government confirmation that you are good to go. You are good to do the clinical trials. You can register the clinical trials officially. So it's a good blend between regulation and experimentation.
Yeah, I think it creates more flexibility for some of these things to be tested for people that are willing to go down that path. And I've always said that I think the key things are what you mentioned, the safety and transparency, and having a review board look at things is really sort of legitimizes what's going on. I know there are other economic zones that are for this purpose that are being set up in Central America, Latin America. I guess there's been talk of some in Europe. I haven't heard of any in Asia yet. Are you aware of any place in Asia that would meet this criteria? Because, Asia has a lot of people interested in aging. The concept of longevity is sort of central to TCM and Ayurveda. And I think Honduras is not on their radar. It would be interesting to have. No offense, I mean it's a great place, but it's a long way to go from Asia, and so I'm wondering if you've heard anything about any place in Asia that's starting to go down that path yet.
Well, I heard there are some movements around the area, but nothing yet as official and as good as Prospero. So I think you have the community there, you have all the tools, you have the right people. So you need to start one, Brian, in Singapore or somewhere close.
I'm not sure Singapore is the place to do it, but I do think it's an interesting concept to think about it in Asia, and it would be, for one thing, one of the things we're realizing is that when we look at these biologic aging clocks in Asian populations, they don't work as well, which is not particularly surprising given that they were all built on Western populations. And so we need to be collecting more data on Asians. So I think that we need more research in that area. But this is a challenging regulatory hurdle for governments, and but it's also an opportunity, I think. Um, I was curious. You said with the approval for the VEGF for the PAD, peripheral atherosclerotic disease, I think, right? That there were 10. It's already been used on 10,000 patients. I wonder. I assume nobody's looked at aging in those studies, but I wonder if any data has been collected on clinical parameters or anything to suggest that there are benefits of the treatment that go beyond the disease that it's used for. There might be interesting data hiding in somewhere in there that would give you a hint as to what's working already.
Yeah, that could be, but yeah, it's hard to tell because from what we saw, well, there are a few other interesting effects we are looking at. So they, of course, have images of improved capillarization, of improved arterial ingrowth in the muscle. Which is interesting because we get this capillarization declines with age. So with age, we get worse blood supply of all organs. And what's good about that is that you have this therapy acting locally. There has been experiments with doing that for cardiac ischemia as well with this gene. And what they also get is improvement of ABI index. So there might be some effect on blood pressure because you have like the flow of blood distributed into a larger capillary bed, which might make things better in terms of blood pressure. But also in this case, with plasmids and with local effects, we also don't want to do like 100 injections in a human because also those injections, they're a bit painful. So it would be really interesting to see the results of a systemic approach here, how AVVEGF, what effect it has on the body. So we are waiting for preclinical data there to see how it works.
Yeah, I would think that you mentioned you mentioned hair regrowth and alopecia. I would think that skin conditions would be a really interesting area for this research as well, because the skin is pretty poorly vascularized to start with, and as you lose vascularization with age, this gets enhanced even more. So, other conditions associated with skin aging might be really good indications to look at here as well.
Yeah, true. So we were thinking about the skin condition as well. We also thought about erectile dysfunction, but usually it's not related with capillaries and with blood supply. But in some cases it is. So yeah. And also, of course, brain vascularization is super important. But in this case, we get problem of delivery to the brain, and also it's a very sensitive area to experiment with, of course.
Yeah. You mentioned kind of looking in the muscle studies performance a lot. And so, one of the things that I've been discussing a lot lately is strategies to optimize performance and strategies to enhance healthy longevity are greatly overlapping, I think. Maybe not completely overlapping. There's some optimization of performance that's done that might be disadvantageous in the long term. But in general, I think that those two concepts go well together. And so I wonder what you think about that. You were doing a lot of hacking yourself, and how much, what is the overlap between performance and longevity? And do you think that companies in the longevity space should be thinking more about performance?
Yeah, it's a very interesting discussion indeed. So, of course, if you look at some of the athletes, they really do ruin their health and get injured while trying to get max performance. But it's I think it's great to have those targets in the short run when you can actually see yourself like running fast, and it motivates you to train and motivates you to be like to care about lifestyle as well, and motivates you to experiment with new stuff. So I think it's a great like short-term motivator. And what's interesting also there is the projects like enhanced games, which you might have heard about. So it's like alternative Olympics with all kinds of illegal, well, not illegal, banned substances allowed. So what they're saying is that what's actually doping for athletes, it could be a very beneficial substance for example, people with sarcopenia. It's more or less the same drugs like human growth hormone, like testosterone, and so on. They're used in both of these cases. So I think it's important to have those kind of projects when healthy athletes are allowed to experiment with those kind of therapies, including gene therapies. We see which of them work. There's sportsmen, they compete for money, and for fame, and they get what they need, and we get the scientific data, and later on we'll be able to apply those results got from this kind of sports events onto aging population.
Yeah, maybe that's an interesting comment. Maybe we'll explore that overlap between performance and longevity in another show. I think it's an interesting topic to talk about. I want to bring in Jonas Malarok in to handle some of the questions from the audience. Jonas?
Hi, thank you, Brian, and thank you, Vladimir, for the presentation. We have a lot of questions, and I've grouped them in a systematic way. The first ones are mostly towards oncogenesis. So it's similar themes. So maybe I'll read out a few. First one is VEGF, which is known to promote angiogenesis, blood vessel formation, which can be implicated in tumor growth and metastasis. Similarly, another question is regarding increasing Klotho expression, which is an anti-aging protein, could promote growth of existing precancerous cell, or targeting the immune system, which can lead to immune dysregulation. So how are you addressing the potential risk of these mechanisms contributing to oncogenesis, especially with systemic administration?
Yeah, it's indeed true. VEGF plays a role in development of tumors, and we are aware of that. So, there are some anti-VEGF chemotherapies which are approved for treating some of the cancer types. In our case, we have several layers of protection. So, first of all, it's a plasmid. Plasmid, if it gets into bloodstream, it gets chopped by nucleases, so it cannot be transported through the bloodstream and affect other cells outside of injection site. Then we mainly inject in the muscle, where cancers are quite rare, of course, and also our therapy, the one which we are using, the plasmid therapy, it already had 5-year follow-up clinical trials. So it's very safe to say that it does not cause increased cancer rates. So we have good clinical data in our case. Also, as an even further layer of protection, we wouldn't work with patients which were diagnosed with cancer previously or may have developing cancers in the body. So just to be absolutely sure. And also, although VEGF plays a role in tumor development, as secreted by the tumor, and it promotes capillary growing to the tumor, but it has not been shown that increased VEGF levels lead to cancer development. On the contrary, if we look at mice studies, mice which had increased VEGF levels, they had less cancer. So we don't see any data that actually if you even systemically increase VEGF levels in your body that you'll get more cancer. So if we see that with AAV therapies, of course, then we don't proceed with human trials.
Thank you, Vladimir. And I think just to extend a bit more on that, in a broader picture, one of our attendees would like to know, are gene therapies safe and to what extent, and what is the cost estimate for 1-year therapy?
Well, it depends on therapy itself. Well, for plasmids, I think it's one of the safest things imaginable because you don't get an immune response there. So it's a very inert thing to have in your body. Of course, if you talk about gene therapies with viral vectors, there's potentially have side effects and they will produce a certain immune response, although hopefully a mild one. Well, that's the same what you get with also with RNA vaccines driven by viral vectors. You get a severe immune response. So you may have side effects there, but I think every kind of treatment with a serious benefit, it usually has some safety concerns. So we need to be mindful of those, and we need to administer therapies in case there is a positive risk-benefit ratio. And of course, at the initial stages, there is some room for additional risk. Because you never know unless you see this person in 30 years if there are any long-term consequences. And regarding the cost, so you know that if you look at the drugs on the market, some of them cost up to $4 million for a single administration. Those are for serious life-threatening conditions. And in case of plasmid therapies, those usually cost thousands of dollars, tens of thousands. They're not that expensive to produce, of course, but it's just that they're very limited in availability for now. And I think as soon as we are able to show that, for example, a certain combination of gene therapies offsets human aging by 10 years or by 20 years, you'll get hundreds of companies into the field, and eventually we'll get gene therapies at the price of vaccines. So it's just a matter of contributing more effort into the field and showing that they work.
I wanted to jump in because just a couple of weeks ago, we had Miriam Grunwald on, who was the scientist who did the VEGF mouse aging study. And so if you want to hear more about VEGF and aging, you can go back and look up that on YouTube. It's a discussion just on that topic. Sorry to jump in. Go ahead, Jonas.
Thanks, Brian. We have another question, which is pretty long. I think it's more focusing on lifestyle here. Questions on what can we do outside of taking drugs and therapies. So I was wondering if with your collaborations in gene therapies with the clinics that you have partnerships with, how much is lifestyle and gene therapy going hand in hand with regards to patient treatment?
Well, naturally, we need both of them, especially like for competitions like X Prize, when you need to get a significant improvement in the condition of a human in just 1 year. Because you need to do everything. You need to eat a proper diet. You need to exercise. Maybe you need to use some supplements. Maybe you might also find some benefit in drugs like metformin or rapamycin or something like that. So, so far it's impossible to estimate like what's the balance between gene therapies and like the other components will be. But we also need to bring some significant scientific novelty to the field. So we bring the gene therapies, and the data will show if the effect is significant or not. So far it's important to estimate. But as a person, you of course, so far if you are not yet doing lifestyle and exercising, you need to start as soon as possible. Don't wait for gene therapies.
That's a good advice. I think maybe the last question would probably be regarding the guidelines that the regulatory guidelines in Honduras, and one of our viewers want to know how can we replicate that in India. So maybe you could little talk about how that partnership began. How did you find the regulation in the first place? The challenges on understanding it, implementing it, and how we could bring that over to Asia.
Well, this Prospera zone, it started with just a U.S. company kind of going into a treaty with the Honduran company, with the Honduran government, and they incorporated the Prospera regulations inside the Honduran constitution. So and also in international treaties. So it's protected from several sides by several treaties and laws. And what it gives to Honduras is that they get an inflow of investment. They get sort of like an offshore zone inside their own country. But of course, companies starting operation in that zone, they will be employing local Honduran people to work inside that zone, and these people will get paid more than the average salary in Honduras. So there's kind of economic benefit for the country as well. Right now, there's actually significant opposition from the current president of Honduras, and she's trying to get rid of Prospera. But so far, I think it's protected across multiple layers, so it's not going anywhere. I think for now, we'll see what happens next. But yeah, it's good if we have more examples like this, especially related to medicine and to biotech, because hopefully. The governments will realize that we cannot really stimulate people to make more children reliably, but what we can do is actually prevent the population aging by treating aging itself. Yeah, it's very logical. So there are two approaches to keep population young: either keep making new people or take care of the existing ones. So the first approach kind of fails. So we have a population decline in developed countries. So I think the countries should start paying more attention to treating aging, and the approach that might work is engaging into more of those zones which allow innovation in medicine.
Yeah, I think let me just jump in. Thanks, Jonas, for the questions. We're running out of time. But I think it reflects also this issue we have about how we develop therapies. A lot of people think that the current regulatory principles are really impairing development of new therapies because of the huge amount of money and time it takes to develop things. On the other hand, pushing the envelope too far in the other direction could create risk of treating patients with unsafe treatments. And I'm not sure anybody has the solution to this right now. I think these special economic zones are intriguing strategies to try to find common middle ground where there's some regulation but more flexibility. And I think it'll be exciting to see how they develop going forward. Vladimir, thanks for doing the show. Good luck to the company and clinical trial development. And I look forward to seeing you down the road somewhere soon, hopefully.
Thank you for the invite. It was a pleasure.
Anytime. Yeah. And I want to make a few announcements before we close the show. First of all, use the chat function and panelists and all attendees option to leave comments and feedback. For instance, if you want to hear more about what's going on in these special economic zones, we can have more people on the show that are operating there. We have a Healthy Longevity Intensive Course 2025 for healthcare professionals. That'll be on February 25 and 26 of next year. High intensity knowledge about healthy longevity. And right after that, there will be a Founders Longevity Forum Singapore Unlock Healthy Longevity Conference. This event will bring together investors, innovators, entrepreneurs, and researchers in biotech, clinical components, and consumer longevity. So register your interest now. There is a code showing up on the web or on our show to find more information. We have another 2000 Healthy Longevity Talent Incubator coming up in 2025. If 2 days of intense course is not enough, you can try 10 days of intense interactions, meet a lot of scientists in the field, look at cutting edge knowledge in the area of healthy longevity, and have unforgettable experiences. And then last but not least, we're announcing that we have, well, I have 2 more announcements. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. The next one is that we have a global conference on gerophysics, a new concept, merging aging and theoretical physics together to try to model how humans age and learn more about the biology of aging. This will be happening on March 5th and 6th next year. It's the first conference of its kind. To our knowledge, and we have some of the leading aging researchers and physicists showing up. So there'll be an opportunity to come hear about this, bringing 2 fields of science together. And then finally, we have a Healthy Longevity Initiative student group locally. And some of our students and interns have started a student group called the Healthy Longevity Initiative to promote awareness on campus about pursuing longevity as a career. If you're interested to join, or if you're unsure about how you can contribute to longevity in your career, scan the Telegram QR code and chat with Camille, who you heard earlier in the show, and Calvin. So there's plenty of room to interact with things happening in healthy longevity in Singapore, and we hope you can find one of those or more that intrigue you. Thanks again for joining us on the show. January 9th, I believe, will be our next show. We're still lining that up, but we're definitely coming back in the next year, and we look forward to a lot more exciting shows. I'll leave you with a overview of Singapore's creative ideas to keep seniors active. Have a happy holidays, and I'll see you in 2025.
现在的人在家就是玩手机，一天到晚就是玩手机。我主要的目的是拉我的痘的下来做运动了。他现在也比较自然了。开始来的时候，他们是运动方面比较差，做2下他就比较喘，比较假抓。那么现在他们做了也比较自然。玩玩啦，没有事情做了，孩子都大了，相当好了，我们觉得好。运动了，早上会早一点起来，晚上也好睡，身体也觉得健康了。
Like sunshine, like springtime, like something's in the water and I'm taking a deep dive. I'm feeling so weightless, like I'm gonna make it, and nothing in the universe can take this. I can see it clearly now, nothing gonna bring me down.